Hi, guys.
Let's see if we can get where you can actually see us.
Yeah, looks great.
Can you hear us
yeah,
okay?
you guys sound good. How about me?
All right, great.
Cool.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can see Paloma really well.
You gotta have.
Oh, well. I need the shade.
Yeah, that sun protection's important. Cool. So we'll wait a few moments. Thanks for coming. We're gonna let people get settled in. We're here live with Arlington Gardens, Paloma and Levi. They're gonna give us a tour.
Yeah, welcome. We're here at Arlington right now. Currently, Tuesdays are closed to the public so that our volunteers can help with maintenance in the garden and have a lot of space to themselves and feel safe. That's why we aren't wearing masks right now. If you visit the garden any other time, please continue to wear a mask. So we are going to show you a little bit about the garden, but you're welcome to come anytime except Tuesdays to come see the rest of the garden. It's pretty glorious right now with everything in bloom. So let's start walking.
Do you want to get started? We'll just give a little tour.
Yeah,
that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Before we get started,
Uh-oh.
you know, let's see.
Can you hear?
Yeah, you guys are
I think
good.
we lost our audio.
I can hear you guys. While they figure
Are
that
you
out,
able to hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
You can.
Sorry, we can't hear you right now.
Oh, no. Let's see. Maybe try rejoining. Can the audience hear me? Give me a little wave.
Well, if you can hear us, okay, we can continue, but we can't hear what you're saying, unfortunately.
Okay. Before we begin, all of our events and programs were inspired by breeding sweetgrass, and we hope everyone got a copy. And you can also visit the link in our bio to learn more about this grant program.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You want to lead and I'll follow you?
Oh, okay, sure. So we're going to head down the pathways. There's a lot of winding and intertwining pathways around Arlington. And this one is going to go through our desert garden. We are a native California, but also a Mediterranean climate garden. So we have plants from all over the different Mediterranean zones. And we're going to go through one that is our desert garden with plants that you can find from the desert in California, but also Australia and South Africa. There's monarchs right now flying around. Yay. And we recently found some more caterpillars this morning on our narrow-leaf milkweed in the orange grove. I can see a mockingbird singing at the top of the bloom, all the way up there. There's a bumblebee enjoying itself.
So cute.
We're gonna go under the Palo Verde. You want to talk about some native plants?
Sure. So this is one of my favorite areas. As we get further down the hill of Arlington, the garden is built on a rise, so it drops about 30 feet in elevation. So as the water flows down, it's captured in various ways through swales and berms. And as we get lower in the garden, we go towards all native California plants. And this is one of our oldest coast live oaks.
Wow.
So this is an anchor species in California. This provides habitat for thousands, literally thousands of species. It is 100 species of butterflies alone. So if you know that there's that many butterfly species, you also know birds. There's a lot of other insects. And this is also historically the traditional food of native people in California. All over, harvest this anywhere in California, store it for the winter, and it becomes a base diet. So there are both human history and plant and animal history are built around this California live oak, which has been in California for as many as 20 million years.
Wow.
So many of these plants and animals we find are dependent on the California live oak. So some of them are the hummingbird sage, which is just going out of bloom now. But you can see in the shade, we've got coffeeberry, currants, gooseberry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also providing shelter for any number of other animals in the canopy.
Very cool. Thank you. How did the garden come to be?
So as we're getting lower, we're kind of leveling out. So the water starts to spread out and sink in, and we enter more growth. So these are Western sycamore or California sycamore. They grow near stream beds because they like a lot of water. So this is why this exists in the lower part of our garden. Flowers?
Yeah, let's go to the wildflowers. So underneath our sycamore is some columbine and a lot of golden currants, which
Oh, how
not only
beautiful.
birds enjoy, but people are able to enjoy as well. There's our red bud, which we oftentimes, leaf cutter bees will take apart some of the leaves to create essentially a sleeping bag that they sleep in every night.
Oh,
Not every bee lives in a hive or even colony. And a lot of our native bees live either underground or within leaves. Here's our wildflower section. We initially received a number of seeds from the Theodore Payne Foundation, and since then have collected the seeds when they dry every year and spread them in the fall after the first rain to sprout again and bloom here. We have a variety of different native flowers, and because of this, you can find a lot of insects, birds. This morning I saw goldfinches. Enjoy.
This is the Matalija poppy.
ooh.
It's, if you can see it in comparison to my hand, this is a really big poppy. This is the largest poppy in California, and I believe it's the largest poppy bloom in North America. So this is also a California native, and you'll see it blooming exactly this time of
Yeah,
year.
they're awesome. They look like fried eggs to me.
This one's a little unusual. If you see behind me, this is a California buckeye. They aren't typically found in Southern California or where we are. You'll find more of them a little further north, but they're definitely happy to be here. You'll find them here and there, usually planted.
Okay.
You guys want to see the labyrinth?
Sure. We have a labyrinth at the garden used for meditating. It was built by a local school, their class many years ago. It's still here. Many people enjoy it. I'm going to send my kids to go demonstrate. Guys, demonstrate how you use the labyrinth. You want to talk about the pepper tree that is over it?
Yeah, so we have behind it is the pepper tree. This is actually a remnant of the mansion that existed on this land before it was demolished for the 710 freeway project. So this was an empty lot for many years before it became Arlington about 16 years ago. It was actually a vacant lot which was used as a stationing ground for a staging ground for the 710 freeway. So they would put trucks and heavy equipment. So our soil got very compressed. It was barren of most plants. This pepper tree was one of the few trees that actually remained. So it's quite a thing. And if we go around the corner, so many of these plants, especially our native plants, are habitat plants for native wildlife, insects, birds, and all kinds of other creatures that are moving in and out of this space. And what's interesting about the pepper tree is that recently we've had some honeybees move in. So you can see the sign here, the bees at work. There you go. So this is just to let folks know that actually in this tree is an active colony of European honeybees.
Wow. Can you hear them?
So you'll see all kinds of wildlife here in the garden.
And here underneath some more oaks and near our Santa Cruz ironwoods are where the spotted towhees love to be. They're actually making nests within a lot of the lower plants, and I've seen them all the time, but they are a little skittish, so they're hiding right now.
Cool.
So we'll continue to walk down to the lowest part of our garden, which is where any of the water that's made it this far will sink into our vernal pool. So vernal pools are naturally occurring in the world. Most of the LA basin was actually wetlands originally, and it was drained and eventually channeled into concrete channels where our water flows now. It flows. Most of our waterways are streets and concrete rivers, which doesn't allow for wetlands because those are the areas which actually built our homes and all of our architectural spaces that we live in. So to have a vernal pool or even a wetlands is a little hard to find now in the LA area. We have about 6% in LA County of what we would have had 100 years ago. And of course, wetlands are critical habitat for very specific species. So you can see here, we have a little bridge, and this bridge crosses the lowest point mostly under the bridge. Can you see the little gnome living under the bridge?
I know.
Well, Emma can tell you about the name game we're playing.
Well, we currently have through our Instagram and newsletter a naming the gnome contest if anyone wants to help me my gnome.
Yeah.
So this is the lowest point in the garden where you'll see species like the arroyo willow behind me, which is, we're probably a few arroyo seco. This is a native to the arroyo seco, and because it's in the lowlands where the water's gathering, it can also thrive here. We also have things like cottonwood, alder, sycamore, things that are habituated to grow in wetland areas. That same time with the rainwater, and then hold on to that water a little later into the summer.
We also have an Engelmann oak. Talk a little about that.
Yeah, let's walk that way. It's the Engelmann is one of our local endemic species. It's also called the Pasadena oak. There aren't a lot of them left. They're endemic to a very small area, and they're fairly sensitive. And a lot of them were cleared to make way for the building of Pasadena. But you'll kind of see this kind of integrated into and among. This one's Ceanothus, which is just finishing its bloom, also known as the California lilac. And right behind it, this is the Engelmann oak.
Cool.
So if you see those leaves, they look a little blue, longer, not quite so pointy. This is also an evergreen, like our coast live oak.
And if you continue in this way, we have a milkweed patch right here. We have a fountain and our orange grove, which is where our volunteers help grow delicious vegetables every year that we turn into marmalade and sell to help keep the garden.
And this is our local native milkweed. You'll see it has very narrow leaves. It's about to bloom. This is called the narrow leaf milkweed because guess what? The leaves are really narrow compared to other milkweed, right? So one of the important parts of planting native milkweed, first of all, milkweed is the only food for monarch caterpillars, right? That's an important thing to know. If the milkweed goes away, the monarch goes away. And we've lost a lot of our monarchs, about 90% of them in North America. And that's because we've lost our milkweed. It's been eradicated, especially for agricultural reasons. It's been taken out of fields. But also in urban spaces, it doesn't have the habitat that it once had. So planting our native milkweed is really important for that particular butterfly species.
Maybe we can sit next to the plants and maybe take our earbuds out.
Sounds good.
Do a close-up of the young plants.
Oh yeah. So these are our the golden currant. This is also a native of California and found in our local mountains along waterways. It's a shade-loving plant, so you'll find it in and under tree canopy. But in another, I would say another month or so, midsummer to late summer, all these will be ripened and ready to eat. You can see them kind of turning reddish right here. And then you can also eat them even later in the summer if you like dried currant. You'll still find them on the plant. And they're also a food source for a lot of our native birds in the area.
One thing else I'd like to mention is if you notice on the tour, you might not have, but in person, you'll notice that there are mounds of leaves and branches in a lot of places, and that is very intentional. It really helps to break down the organic matter that's left by our trees that would naturally have fallen, and it decomposes and regenerates the soil. So all of those leaves and branches are really helping us with the soil. When the garden started on a vacant lot, you couldn't grow anything because the soil was completely dead in the way that there was no organic matter living in it and compacted over years of nothing growing to break up the soil and allow for water infiltration. So we are constantly regenerating that soil in order to have more things grow and grow bigger.
Very cool.
Yeah, among the soil building of leaving leaves and biomass in the soil. Let's see if I can get that pole out of our way. It also is habitat. So those leaves and that wood break down in the soil. They're feeding fungi. The fungi break down that woody biomass and they feed it back as nutrients to the plants. In trade, the fungi receive sugars from the plants that they create through photosynthesis, which the fungi can't do. So it's a partnership that allowed for the creation of soil as we know it. And then insects, microorganisms, and these things move into that soil to become food for birds and other foraging animals.
Awesome.
Should we try to hear it?
All right,
Okay.
we're gonna switch over and see if we can actually hear you without these earbuds.
Sure.
All right, you want to try to talk to us again, and we'll see if we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, you can type questions
Yeah.
too. That would be
Yeah, of
helpful.
course.
Unfortunately, we still can't hear.
How did the garden come to be?
Oh, Hagen came to be.
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
answer that. So it began as a Durand mansion many decades ago, and at some point, in the 40s or 50s, I want to say, it was raised and left a vacant lot for 45
Wow.
years. Caltrans then owned it for those 45
Mhm.
years, and it was to be a staging ground where they would leave all of the equipment and rubble and vehicles that they were going to use to build the 710 through Pasadena, South
Mhm.
Pasadena, and El Sereno to join the other side of this, to join the other side of this 710. And while it was a vacant lot, there's a number of apartment buildings sitting right next to it. And two residents, Betty and Charles McKenney, decided that they were very tired of staring at a vacant lot outside of their apartment day after day and asked the city for permission if they could begin a garden. And with that, they started a partnership. So they started the nonprofit Arlington Garden in Pasadena in partnership with the city of Pasadena to begin having volunteers, which was anyone who wanted to come, but mostly people who lived right next door, to come and create this garden. The garden designer is Maita Dinos, who is still very involved, and she decided to help with the garden. And everyone loved the idea of having it climate appropriate, Mediterranean focused, and native plant focused, or native California focused. So with that, they started building the gardens, and we have asked recently, what is the very first thing that they did to commemorate the garden? And it was mulching. So it was to replenish the soil, which we all loved. And then soon they hired a local landscaping company to start using urbanite. If you don't know what urbanite is, it seems like it's a geological term, but it's for reusing local concrete of buildings. So you break the concrete that's already created and use it to stack. It could be mortarless or with cement. To create, here it was berms, swales, seating area. We have a little amphitheater that we call the pomegranate amphitheater because an artist donated stained glass of a pomegranate for it, and it's really lovely. And we used a lot of the foundation from that was left over from the mansion is used within it, and then brought in from other places. And we're right now, if you hear hammering every once in a while, we actually are reusing more of it right now to create more seating area in the meadow.
That's awesome.
One of the ways that to think about materials in urban space is as we remove things to allow space for new development, a lot of that goes to a landfill. We can use parks and open space to build with these materials. So we're currently doing this project in our meadow to rebuild an open meadow area in a circle of seating. And we're reusing concrete, as Paloma said. We've been meeting every 2 weeks to work on that project. The other thing we use a lot of is wood chips, branches, leaf mulch that we gather from local arborists. Arborists would otherwise be taking those loads, truckloads, up to the landfill. And here we can actually keep them on the soil to do all those good things we talked about earlier to enhance the space as habitat and healthier soil.
Very cool.
Take that one. Okay. So this garden was originally built as a Mediterranean garden. California is one of 5 Mediterranean climates in the world. If you kind of think about, so you've got California, you have the Mediterranean, which encompasses Southern Europe, part of the Middle East, and North Africa. All of the other areas are more like California, where they're kind of the southwest corner of the continent. So one of them is Chile and Argentina, the southwest corner of Australia, and South Africa and Madagascar. So these are the regions. These are the regions that we share climate with. So the conditions are very similar. We have a dry summer. We have a mild, wet winter, and so we can share plants. So for the last 100 years, or probably more, since people have been transporting things internationally, we've gained a lot of new friends. We have plants here from all over the world.
That's really cool.
So especially in the upper part of our garden, it represents at least 5 different continents of plants that grow in similar climates. Currently, what we are trying to focus on is what is native to California. What are our local ecosystems? How are they represented here in the garden? And especially talking about how is the climate changing, and how will that impact our spaces, and what are the various things we can do to mitigate that impact on our local ecosystems and on our communities.
What makes this garden a habitat garden?
You want to go?
Let me take that one.
Go for it.
We've talked a lot about this, about what makes this garden a habitat. Because it's urban, it's naturally a habitat for people. And it's funny because sometimes when we talk about habitat, we're actually not thinking about people. Historically, on a planet, people have been integrated with natural elements and dependent on and very conscious of. And we've sort of gone down this path where we kind of have sort of delineated between the two. This is a wild land. This is a habitat for animals, birds, plants, all those things. And then we have the city, which is habitat for people, and very human-centric. Arlington is one of the few public parks that integrates those ideas, so that we have as much habitat here for other living things as we do for humans. So part of that is layering the plant life. So we have trees, shrubs, all the way down to grasses and annual flowers, which creates a whole environment, which is integrated into a food web. And we are 3 acres, so especially birds flying over recognize this as a place where there's food and water, shelter, and a place to raise young. We try to emulate our local ecosystems like the Arroyo Seco, like the San Gabriel foothills, and try to represent those spaces and those plant communities. And as we represent the plant communities, all of those species that depend on those plant communities show up, and they start to build their own community within this garden.
That's very cool. What's your favorite part of the garden?
Yeah, I like the Audubon saying that if you want to help feed birds, plant native plants. I'm watching right here a number of goldfinches hopping around and eating the seeds that are what some people might say are dead plants, but to us they're just, drying out and being ready to collect seeds. And we'll wait for the birds to stop collecting before we collect them.
That's nice. I
think we're in Levi's favorite part of the garden.
It's true. The sycamore grove is my favorite part of the garden.
Do you want to?
It's for all those. I like the shade. You can see I wear a hat. me and the sun are still working on our relationship. I'm a friend of the trees. The shade they provide, the cool air. I love the sounds of the wind and the leaves, and also birds. There's layers and layers of birds in the tree canopy. So yeah, this is my favorite place.
Nice.
Yeah, I hesitate to say I have a favorite place because it's all just so wonderful to me and one place in my heart. But one place I do like to point out to people is past the labyrinth. If you start to move up into the garden on a sort of driveway, we have a lot of endemic species to the Channel Islands that are really thriving. And that's exciting to me because these are plants that you're not going to see anywhere else on our earth. And they're doing so well. So we have ironwoods, we have Channel Island tree poppies, Catalina cherries, and they are rife with life and wildlife. And yeah, it's just so exciting to me to be able to see these humongous, the poppies are taller than I am. And the ironwoods you can, kind of embrace and hide in them. And it's amazing to me that these are found nowhere else on earth.
That is so cool. I didn't know that. And last, how can people support the garden? Let's see.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So we are a nonprofit. We do have a relationship with the city of Pasadena, but we mostly earn funding from individual donations. You can also help support the garden by coming to the garden and buying marmalade, or on our website, on our marmalade page, we have a lot of different stores listed that sell the marmalade. That you can also help not only the local stores in the area, but also the garden. We also host volunteering on Tuesdays and now bi-weekly Sundays. Our kids who volunteer constantly.
Hi guys. Hi.
So we would love donations of any kind.
Okay.
So volunteering. We would love to see you at the garden. This Friday, we are working with, I see a Buick Wren right now. They're very beautiful birds. I'm distracted by But this Friday, we're hosting a City Nature Challenge, Nature Walk. City Nature Challenge is put on by the Natural History Museum every year, where they encourage people to become community scientists who study diversity and biodiversity and habitat. You don't need to have a degree. You don't need to study. All you need to do is be able to observe.
Yeah.
And when you observe, you're just here, you're present, you're looking, you're hearing. So we're going to be doing a little walk around the garden on Friday. You can look at our Instagram for more information. And we'll be having binoculars and guides to help identify the different pollinators and birds. So we hope to see you in the garden soon.
Did we talk about our volunteer days? We have, we also have volunteer days every Tuesday. If you sign up ahead of time, there's an orientation for the Tuesday volunteer days where we do garden maintenance. The garden is closed to the public on Tuesdays. And then we have a bi-weekly do more project-oriented work. Like right now we're rebuilding the meadow garden, so you can actually learn hands-on how to work with urbanite or recycled concrete. We'll be planting a Gray Sister garden in 2 weeks. Okay. So corns, beans, and squash based on the indigenous tradition of planting these plants in community. So you can look both of those events up on the website.
Okay. Yeah, and everyone who's watching, check out their Instagram. It's full of a lot of information, and they're doing some really cool stuff. And let me just and then if you guys have any questions, please submit them with the little question mark icon in the bottom right corner.
Oh yeah, if people have questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Do you want to come up? Sorry, it's still a bit weird that we can't hear.
I know, I'm so
about
sorry.
that.
But we're kind of following the text, so anything anybody wants to add in there, we can follow up on it.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah.
We could show you.
Yeah.
We're working on a meadow,
That'd be great.
and you can see Chris Martinez is hard at work. He works with volunteers on our work days to do this urbanite work, and then he comes on when the volunteers are not here and continues to do that work. So, Chris, you want to say hi?
Hi, Chris.
So that's Chris. You can see this is the bench project he's working on, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. You can see across the meadow, all of this broken concrete and bare soil will all become a new planting area.
Looks like D that has a question. Yeah.
We did kind of answer that, but we formerly had a structure here in the meadow behind me that was a raised bed planter, also done in urbanite that was original to the garden 16 years ago. It sort of became not as functional as it once was as a place where people wanted to come visit. And it became kind of a place that people were trying to get around instead of a place that people were coming to. So we tried to switch that up a bit.
There's a mockingbird chasing red-whiskered bulbuls.
Oh, we got some garden drama.
I don't know how much detail we have on this camera. I can kind of turn it out so you guys can see what's happening. But you'll see some logs here on the ground. You'll see concrete, what is now kind of turned over soil. We'll be building that soil health back. We'll be using some hugelkultur techniques, which we do here in the garden, which is building up soil and biomass like logs, wood chips, branches, cuttings from the garden. And all of that is to feed the life in the soil and build up a healthy ecosystem within the soil that becomes sustainable over time. So that we're basically setting out a banquet for microbes in the soil. So that's what these piled up wood chips and logs and all of this are about. Is in 2 weeks, what we'll be doing is we'll be building those planter beds, which will become, for the summer, our 3 sisters, a little different than what the garden has done historically. It's a little late. It's getting late in the season to plant native plants. So we're going to try this out for 1 season. We'll be doing a seed exchange, telling stories of where our seeds come from and how they've come to this place and planting them in community with each other and nurturing that garden through the summer. And then in the fall, we'll return it to a native meadow garden, including all of those things that you might find, like wildflowers, native grasses, and it will remain an open area. It's one of the few areas that's actually not built out and with heavy tree canopy and seating area. So it'll remain a wide open area. So kind of like, it's one of the best places for bird watching.
Okay, good to know.
Because we're surrounded by trees on every side. We're actually sitting underneath a tree right now. But as you go out into the meadow, it's wide open so that you can see all of these birds come into space to forage and eat seeds and insects in the soil, and then they'll dart back into the trees to hide.
All right, audience, we're still taking questions. We would love to hear what you want to know.
That's it. All right. If anyone has any more questions, let us know. There we go.
I'm so sorry. I wish you guys could hear me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. Can you switch the camera around?
Try it.
I just want to show everybody how beautiful it is.
Yeah, you can.
Clouds are out. The birds are singing. There's monarchs floating around.
You can't quite see the mountains from this angle, but when you stand in the middle of the meadow, which I guess I could do. Let's see. Can you see the San Gabriels?
Yeah.
I don't know if you could make
Yeah.
that out, but right between these sycamores are the kind of haziness of the San Gabriel Mountains today. There's our monarch, which I'm sure you can't see.
I hope everyone can hear the beautiful birds.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes me a heart.
It's so beautiful.
What's currently blooming? So many wildflowers.
Let's go take another look.
Can't even begin to say.
So there's our sycamores and our currants, which just finished their bloom and are now going to berries. And I don't know, you want to start into what's blooming just right here in this patch?
We got our California poppies, a number of bees darting in and out. We have Lacy Phacelia, the purple ones, right next to it.
So pretty.
You can see the Mathalihas in the back reaching towards the sky. We have some pink Clarkias popping up. There's some sunflowers. The wild roses are growing really tall.
It's so pretty right now. So much blooming. It looks like Muti Latte has a question. Do you currently host or plan to host workshops on regenerative
This
gardening?
is the white sage back here, which is in full bloom right now. Bees are loving it. And again, like Paloma was saying earlier, part of the reason we leave these stalks, so this whole stalk here of flowers will be seeds by midsummer. And a lot of people will cut those back because they look dead. But in fact, what they do is they turn into a bird feeder.
Oh.
So the fact that they're way up high like this makes these smaller birds feel safe to land up here and then pick out those tiny little seeds, which will cover this whole branch. So it becomes a giant bird feeder if you leave those out.
I think I saw a big bumblebee.
Everything's kind of towards the end of the blooms, but to me, it's just as beautiful to see all the varieties of seeds and how unique they all are. I know we have lupin, but I don't see any right now. I do still have lupin seeds.
See if I can get to some of our lupin seeds.
Oh, thank you, do that.
So lupin, which is a beautiful purple wildflower, it draws nitrogen from the air into the soil, and lupin is a bean or legume. So these are actually the lupin seeds. They look like little bean pods because they are. So these can be gathered about this time of the season, and you can see those are the seeds inside.
Oh.
So these are actually the seeds that we'll begin to save and propagate our new meadow area.
That is so cool.
I think I see a question. You want to take that? Can you read it?
There are still slots open for the seed exchange in 2 weeks. Oh, thank you. That's Andrew. He's our volunteer manager chiming in. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to come and sign up and to help volunteer and exchange seeds with us, we'd be happy to have you. I know this all started from braiding sweetgrass and it's one of my favorite books. So something I can't help thinking is that when you help tend to the land, it's not only are you giving a gift, but the land gives gifts back.
Yeah.
And so all of our volunteers are so happy to be here, and it physically feels good. Just walking around and seeing the progress makes me physically feel good and happy and proud. Miss Rumphius Lupin book. That's right.
Oh yeah.
Rumpus? Rumpus.
The Lupin Lady.
Yeah, the Lupin Lady.
Yeah, that's what I think within that book, they discuss that one of the most important things to do with your life is to give back and to spread a gift, and her gift was wildflowers. And I think something we can all do, even if we don't have land, is to be able to find a common space that we can share and help heal the soil, help heal the land, bring native plants back, and with native plants, so much more follows. And when we respect the land and give love to it, it gives love back.
Well said. Thank you.
This is one of the, for those of you who are reading Braiding Sweetgrass, one of the central themes is the idea of reciprocity, which is the continual giving of gifts and receiving the gifts of the land that, frankly, we wouldn't be here without. Things that we don't always think about, air, water, and the soil is essential to all of terrestrial life, right? So all of our food comes from the soil. If we don't feed our soil, the soil won't feed us, right? So that recognizing these reciprocal relationships around us and in the spaces that we actually live in. Many of our farms are far away from the city. We don't see that relationship happening, but we can bring these relationships into our city and close to us.
Yeah, and something I've noticed, and I know I'm not the only one, is that when I come into spaces like Arlington, and especially in the mountains, I didn't realize how much tension I was holding until I can feel myself letting it go. And that's just because my body, whether I'm aware of it or not, is craving this space. It's craving to hear the birds. It's craving to see the different layers and different shades of green and flowers. And what's beautiful about Arlington, too, is that it's in a city, yet it doesn't feel like you're in a city at all, and it's open to anybody. There's no fee, there's no reservation, so you can just come and enjoy yourself and let yourself breathe a little better, too.
Yeah, that's so true.
When there's not a helicopter.
Yeah.
We are still in the city.
Perfect timing. Okay, well, if anyone has any questions, we'd really love to hear them. Just submit those in the little question mark box. We'll be wrapping it up soon. Unfortunately, Levi and Paloma can't hear me, but I hope you all can hear me. Oh, it looks like I sent a typo. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I'm so
much.
sorry you can't hear me.
Thank you.
But check out.
It's good to see you, even if we couldn't hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Check out our website for upcoming events. You can check out our Instagram. Same goes for Arlington Gardens. They're doing a lot of really cool stuff, as we saw. All right, thanks everyone.